let me introduce you to all my panelists. So we have Kumar Sivarajan, CTO Tejas Networks, Anindya Saha, CTO Saankhya Labs, and Amrita Gangotra, MD IT Digital Solutions. Welcome all to this panel discussion, Kumar, Anindya, and Amrita. So let me start my first question with Kumar. It's a fact that the hardware is getting abstracted and more intelligence is being built in the software.
Right.
India being one of the software superpower. So how India can lead in 5G in these times of softwareization?
Thank you. That's an excellent question. So India is a software superpower led by our services industry, right? The biggies who are all doing extremely well today. So we can lead in 5G if they take the lead. So to become, they may not want to become 5G OEMs, but they have to take the lead to become system integrators, which is what their expertise is. And I think there are a lot of smaller companies, Anindya's Mind, several others, who can provide many aspects of the solution. So we are different in that we don't have an OEM who's capable of doing the whole solution, but we have very strong software companies who can play the role of integrators to integrate technology from a number of different companies. So we have to take a different approach and use our strength both in software services and in startups to evolve a different model to attack the 5G. That's nice.
And also the product companies.
And there are product companies, but we don't have a big product company. We have small product companies and we have big services companies. So we would have a right marriage between the two.
Okay. So Amrita, what is your opinion on this question? Because as Kumar said that, we have very established software services who can act as system integrator, startup, and we have some size of product companies. So what is your take?
Yeah, I mean, India is well known world over for it being a software development, hub. What may or may not be known is most of these IT companies actually work for telecom OEMs like Nokia, Ericsson, etc., to develop their products at the back end. So, they have been participating in the whole value chain as such. But the issue is that mostly the mass is on coding as per the specification. The architecture, the engineering, that is something that is not really in the hands of the Indian, IT services companies, even when they're helping out in building the products. The second thing is that the patenting and IP issue is still there. And the engineering and both of these things sort of make it quite challenging. So the government needs to somehow support this push towards the IT software companies being able to take and participate in the product side. Also, associations like NASSCOM and FI, etc., they should be helping with the government so that the software development piece is also a part of the journey of the Make in India and the PLI schemes. So overall, there's huge potential, but there are challenges that have to be addressed to be able to become a superpower. It's an opportunity there, frankly, Utkarsh, and we should not lose it.
Okay, so we have all the ingredients. We have already moved up in the value chain. So for multinational centers, R&D centers, software services companies, startups, we should be able to lead it. Okay, so Anindya, my next question is that in order to lead, as Amrita has also said, we should be more active in the standard bodies, committees, and patents. What India should do in this aspect?
Yeah, thanks, Utkarsh. This is a great question, and yes, I think if we look at participation in standards, I think it is growing. It is not to the same level as our neighboring countries like China, but then it is getting increased focus. If I look at standardization, essentially, there are two pillars, and basically standardization. If I look at 3GPP, it kind of starts with defining the use cases, and if you look at use cases, it will come from essentially the service providers and the vertical industries. And we have very good academia in India to help us support this. So essentially, a very healthy marriage between academia, industry is really, really key for contribution to standards. And I think the academia needs to be encouraged. Students need to be encouraged. There should be some kind of incentivization, some kind of goal setting should happen. To standardize or to contribute to standards. I personally, I am contribute to TSDSI standardization. I think there are a lot of Indian companies there along with multinationals, and I think. The positive thing I see is that the focus is increasing, the momentum is increasing. TSDSI is playing a very leadership role in that. So it is happening, but then more needs to happen.
Okay. So, Kumar, just taking the clue from that one, there is also one discussion about India-specific 5G standard. So, keeping that perspective also in mind, what is your take that India should do more towards standard bodies and patents?
Yeah. So again, our model needs to be slightly different. Just same problem. We don't have a large OEM who can go and dominate the standards. We have academia and startups. So we need to form some sort of a loose consortium, India 5G Inc. And that's what TSDSI is meant to do, bring us together for a common cause of steering 5G, 6G towards Indian needs. So we all need to collaborate in that sense. After that, we may compete for pieces of the technology. Okay. And so that's a different model. Lots of smaller companies attending virtually makes it eases on the travel budget. Maybe the government can help smaller companies. Which is India specific. We already proven one small thing. We came up with 5G-I, which is an India-specific rural broadband use case for 5G. I think we can do more of that. If we apply our minds, we need to solve India's problems through working with the standards bodies, not to develop India-specific standards.
So you are saying that it should not be a separate one, but it should be just adding to the
enhancements to the standards. Enhancements to the standards. We will try to make it compatible with the global standards, but then the other global players also have to take us in and take our requirements and make it compatible with global standards. We want one standard, but not at the cost of not meeting our needs.
Okay. So, 5G is being talked a lot in the context of changing geopolitical situation in the world. Yeah. So, Amrita, how India can protect its 5G infrastructure and citizen data?
Considering the growing significance of 5G communication and what benefits it offers, this technology is classified as critical infrastructure. Now, in India, such infrastructure is created and managed in partnership between government and the private sectors through PPPs. Now, critical infrastructure requires the government to identify the risk and vulnerabilities, right, and be prepared for them. Therefore, they need to have policies and regulations when the technology is used for the country's security, economy, safety, and it cannot be compromised as such. Now, if there is this technology, if it creates havoc on any government, citizen, financial flows, there's going to be disaster because it can be quite unprecedented in scale and unmatched in intrusion. So, therefore, any infrastructure that we allow the foreign companies to come in, which are bound by the laws of their country in terms of gathering intelligence, it exposes India quite a bit, and it is quite a risky aspect. Now, so, the Indian government has been sort of playing around in sort of not necessarily banning, but debating on avoiding some of these vendors. But on the other hand, if you look at it, Utkarsh, these 5G equipments and the IoT equipments will have software and will have parts of equipments that are coming from different countries. For example, the radar sensors, if you look at those components which are used in medical diagnosis or in surgery or in vehicle to vehicle.
So you mean to say that government should make much more stringent in looking into the, if buying any of those IoT devices, and also come with some stringent policies with the foreign vendor.
Yeah, it's going to be quite third party also, because from where you're sourcing and where the origin of the component is,
Okay.
you can't keep track of that. So government has to look at into that. And
Kumar,
coming
your
to
input on this topic?
Yeah. So you asked two questions. First question was about the citizen data.
Yeah.
So I think
I was going to answer
clearly,
on that, but
yeah. So citizen data, Indian citizens' data should remain in India, no questions asked, and privacy should be protected. Collective data can be used for analytics, like you're doing with Arogya Setu, to predict the spread of the disease. So only like that, and the Indian government should control the data of its citizens, and privacy should be fully protected. On the infrastructure, I have one point to add. I think we should get everything from trusted sources. Now, what is the level of trust depends on where it is in the network. Now, the phone requires a much lower level of trust, in the sense anyway the user makes a choice. The RAN requires a higher level of trust because something happens,
Yes.
sizable. And the core requires the highest level of trust. Now, how do you get this trust? Do you use trusted vendors? How do you trust them? Do you inspect their source code? Blah blah. I
So
think
is
that
there some work in going on where there will be evaluation, or there will be guideline through which these vendors has to stick, as Amrita has also said. I hope something is going on. So let me ask Anindya the next question. We have heard the government should do this, government should do that one. So certainly government has to do more, and they have already done a lot. From your perspective, what government should do more in 5G ecosystem? Some two important points.
Yeah, I think probably this is it may be like a no-brainer. I think definitely government needs to help in building a technology as well as a market ecosystem. I mean, we are in the job of building radios. If I look at very simple things like devices, transistors, even RF passive components, they are not there. How do we build a healthy ecosystem of such components in India? I think that should probably become a national mission if you want to become something like a technology powerhouse, or in terms of a market ecosystem. The other thing which I see, which I find significant in the parallel world, is that with the success of what is called as the India stack, things like Aadhaar and UPI, people can really see the benefits of that. So the government of India had already outlined a mission via the National Digital Communication Policy, the NDCP vision, and I think it needs to probably extend that by building what I call as an India telecom stack, and probably it should become a national priority. This is something which I feel needs to be built on open frameworks, and something which can seamlessly
You
work.
are saying that we have a media stack, we are coming with a health stack, so we should also have a telecom stack.
Telecom stack, yes. Yes.
Amrita, what is your take on this question? Two things which government should do.
Two things. First and foremost is we have to have affordable and correct spectrum band allocation for 5G to sort of succeed. Recently, COI and its members asked the department to update the NFAP 2018 to include the spectrum bands that ITU has defined will be used in 5G. For example, 26 gigahertz. The E and V band allocation, it can't be delicensed. So there are these aspects. The second is the affordability of that spectrum. The situation, while Randeep was very gung-ho about 5G, the affordability and what the telcos can really invest is still a question mark.
Okay.
If you're going to have 500 rupees, 500 crores as per megahertz cost, it's simply unaffordable, because you need at least 100 megahertz of spectrum
So I think there is a
to
lot
start
of
rolling out 5G. The second is the infrastructure gap. India has to ramp up its broadband and backhaul fiber. It's got one of the lowest fiber density, even in the BRICS group. Sorry?
Yeah, so Amrita, I think this is what also Randeep said, that we have a spectrum, then we have transport, and we have cloud. So transport and cloud we have taken well care of, and about the spectrum, and you're saying about the infrastructure, the fiber infrastructure. So that's good. So now, Kumar, let me move to the next question. It is said that if anything can work in India, it can work anywhere else in the world.
Yes.
So from that perspective, how India can realize export opportunities in 5G components?
Okay. So it is true. We have Rajasthan and we have, very cold places. So maybe anything that works here can work in the hottest weather and almost coldest weather except Siberia, which may require a little bit of work, but I think we can do that. So that is true. Now, I think the industry is moving towards disaggregation, right? So it is possible now, especially with Open RAN, for radios to be built separately, distribution units, cloud units. I think that will play to the creation of a sub-component industry. If not, when you think components, yeah, we can think transistors and chips and so on, but we can also think building, let's say, radio or building only the software on the disaggregation unit. So I think we have to embrace this and build different components. And what the government can do is provide market opportunities. So I think they're already doing well on the incentives, tax breaks. There's a production linked incentive. There's an incentive to do, but the hardest part in telecom, maybe Anindya can also agree with this, is finding that first customer, the market opportunity. Who's going to give you a break, right? So I think the software industry in India got a break in Y2K. It's too old probably, but we need some break like that. Maybe in national projects, USO funded projects, somewhere we need a break for the Indian industry to prove its mettle. Okay. And then we can go on and become global players. So that's what we really need.
Okay, so Anindya, what is your opinion? Because we have a Make in India, we have PLI scheme, and a lot of these policies have been rolled out in India. So how India can leverage to start exporting 5G components to the world?
Yeah, I think I would say that in this domain, I think some support in R&D expense is required. How that will happen, I am not sure. I think at least in terms of startups, small enterprises, that is something which is very important. And definitely, I think Kumar sir mentioned access to market is very key. If access to market is there, then a lot of things can happen.
Okay, so coming to the my next question, and Anindya, from your perspective, what role startup, mid and small size player can play in 5G ecosystem? Because most of the time the press is filled with all the big names, whosoever, whether it's from system integrator to equipment manufacturer to infrastructure. So everywhere it's all the big name. So how those startup in small and mid can make their elbow space more and more and wider to play in this 5G ecosystem?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think this is something which bothers a lot of people. But see, right now, if I look at one of the significant gains from 5G, if I have to call it a gain, is the fact that people are thinking, in this case, mainly telcos are really thinking of RAN as being a disaggregated piece, which means it can be broken into several components, and it basically can pick and choose from different vendors. So SMEs, startups, medium enterprises, what they can do is whichever piece they excel in, they can actually invest time, money in building that and making it a differentiated product, and that is something which can contribute to the overall ecosystem, and that I feel can work well, because telecom players are always looking at more and more innovative ways of giving differentiated services. Something which could be a win-win for both. And especially things like Open RAN, ORAN, they are paving the way. If you look at the components, the cloud is one piece, the orchestration is one piece.
So let me ask, Anindya, I'm just briefly stopping you because this thing is always there in my mind, and you have to give a very, very upfront and honest answer as you have given all the previous ones. 10 years back, whenever there is any tender rollout, most of the time it has been said that something has been proven somewhere in the world. Okay, so those for the startup and small players, because they may not have proven that much in their live network or somewhere. So actually the barrier to entry was quite high, because by nature we were not the early adopter. Our markets were not the early adopter. A lot of things has changed in a decade. So from you, and Saankhya Lab is there for 14 years approximately. What changes have you seen, and what optimism you have it going forward from this small startup and mid-sized player perspective? And then I will move to Amrita on that question.
Yeah, I think in this case, I would say we have had small successes in terms of building differentiated products and taking it. Essentially we are relying on a software defined radio technology, which is kind of the centerpiece of whatever we do in terms of our radio designs. So to start with, I would say that a lot of people never understood what is
Hello.
software defined radio, why do we need to do it in India. But then as we started proliferating it in several products, like satellite IoT, we kind of proliferated it in several niche areas. Like, it goes on top of, tracking
Okay.
trains, for tracking vessels. So where we could make a dent is in providing differentiation. Wherever we could not provide differentiation, where you are equal to or lesser than Qualcomm or some other player like Samsung, we knew that we would be wiped out, and we never
Okay.
played in those areas. So I think the key thing I feel is working in niche area and giving a differentiated product.
Okay.
That is.
Let me ask Amrita. Amrita, so we are looking into the question is that what role small, medium, and startups can play in 5G ecosystem, which is dominated by big players. So I have asked this question to Anindya that a decade back the tenders and other things always ask something to be proven, and now things have changed. So he said it. Our product has to be differentiated from the world perspective, and then we will have a fair chance. What is your take on this?
Yeah, I mean, startups in India are proving themselves. So, if they have done well in e-commerce and in other areas, there is a lot of innovation that is going on. So I think the startups can, sort of go in the direction that is being set by the government and the need of the hour, as far as Atmanirbhar is concerned. So my belief is that if they're supported well with the policies and regulations and the various schemes, they will be more than happy to take up the challenge of doing these products development and being able to do very good job. In fact, there are a few startups who have started working on things like SD-WAN, or because as we discussed earlier also, because it is a software hub, and if you club that with the fact that it's becoming easier to set up manufacturing units here, it's a win-win situation. So I have great hopes that this is an opportunity that more and more startups will be able to, and smaller companies will be able to participate in. It's an ecosystem. 5G is all about ecosystem. It is not about the telcos and what ubiquitous network they will roll out, but how they will be used, what is the use case. That will actually come from the smaller ecosystem. Look at what happened in 4G also. The network was rolled out by the CSPs, but actually the e-commerce guys and the people who really innovated the use cases, those are the ones
Amrita,
that
I
are.
want a sensitive buy question from this one. Do you see startups coming up only to write use cases for 5G? There is only purpose is to write India-specific use cases for 5G.
I believe it will happen. It happened in 4G, and there will be some smart, small startups, really smart young guys who will come up and write use cases on 5G, whether it's smart home or immersive, experience. We are all entertainment mad, so gaming and things like that, as Randeep was saying, that is something that is bound
Okay.
to happen. I have great hopes.
So Kumar, what is Tejas Networks is there for 20 years. You have seen many seasons and many weathers. So what is your take about the role of startups and small and mid-sized player, and in general as an overall from the 5G ecosystem perspective?
Yeah. So a startup can look to become a big telecom OEM, but sometimes that may be hard. So look at what our auto component industry did. They didn't build cars; they built components for Detroit, right? So I think it's also possible for startups to take a view that the big telecom OEMs of the world are your customers. You have a really innovative piece of technology; they can become your customers. One or two may choose to compete and become a big OEM, but I think largely startups should look at participating in the ecosystem and adopting the big OEMs worldwide as their customers rather than trying to build it all because
Okay. Okay, good. So now I will move to rapid fire round. Okay, so in the rapid fire round, if viewers, if you all can go to the poll tab, in the poll tab, those questions will be put on, and our panelists will respond, and you can also choose your own response so that we will get some poll done on the questions. So I have three questions, and the first question I will ask in the order of Anindya, and then Kumar, and then Amrita. And the second question will start with Kumar, Amrita, Anindya, and the third one Amrita, Anindya, and Kumar, so that
Yeah.
everybody will get
Round robin.
the answer. One or this one. So first polling question, which will come on your screen now. So every 1 decade, okay, we are adding one more G. So in 2031, will we get 6G, stick to 5G, or more evolved version of 5G? What is the answer, Anindya?
Well, the answer could be, I think it could be either A or B. It could be 6G or more evolved version of 5G. And the reason I think is because now people are really talking of machine learning and AI, and that is, some people call machine learning plus 5G as the next 6G. So it is going to be an evolved version.
Rapid fire. Don't give time for others to think.
Okay.
Kumar,
6G.
top of your head.
We will get 6G. Whatever we get, we'll call it 6G. So there's no doubt. No evolved 5G. 6G.
Amrita?
I agree. It will be 6G because we already started to talk about 6G. We don't even know what is it, but we've already started talking about, and R&D labs and 6Gs are being formed.
Okay. So predominantly everybody is saying 6G. So my next polling question is starting with Kumar, Amrita, and Anindya. Okay, so second question on the screen, please. So in comparison with 4G, carbon footprint in 5G will increase, reduce, or remain the same?
Will definitely increase. We're going to have many more base stations. They supposedly consume less power, but in reality, they don't. Overall, it will increase.
Amrita?
It will increase, and that's why, for me, sustainable energy is another focus area as part of the
Anindya?
ecosystem.
Yeah, so I think that the energy per base station may reduce, but then the overall number of use cases, especially when we're talking of network slicing, those are going to increase. So overall, it is likely to increase.
Okay, so overall it will increase, but each and every equipment and those part will have a lesser footprint. But overall, things will increase. Okay, and we have 86% so far is saying increase. So now my last polling question, which will start with Amrita, then Anindya, and then Kumar. In comparison with 4G, okay, the last question, yeah. In comparison with 4G, public health and safety risk of 5G will be greater, same, or lesser? Amrita.
At the moment, I would say it's the same. I mean, people are working towards improving it, but it's the same.
Anindya?
Yeah, I also think it is same. I think there's been a lot of debate around it, but it is largely same. I see the emission rules and all, FCC or anywhere, it is same.
Okay, and Kumar?
Yeah, same. No reason to change. Smaller power base stations pose practically no risk. Even the big ones pose very little risk, but that's a controversial topic. I definitely don't see it increasing. If at all, it should go down.
Okay, so but viewers are saying 55% of them currently is saying it will be greater, and our panelists are saying it is same. Okay, so we have some 7 minutes and we can take some questions. So let me go to the Q&A part of it. So do you think, first question, do you think the arrival of 5G can replace the need of an optical fiber network? From Praveen Devan, this is one question. So for this one, I will ask Kumar.
Okay. Only for the last 100 meters or less from the lamppost to your home. That's the only place where 5G will replace optical fiber, simply because they don't want to dig up your front yard. Everywhere else, up to your curb, you need fiber. Radio does not compete in capacity with fiber.
Okay, is any one of you have a conflicting view, or you think that there will be some other places where optical fiber can be replaced other than the last mile to home?
Well, it can be replaced, but you won't get the latency and this thing. For example, the rural area, I mean, it's difficult to reach with optical. You do need connectivity, but you're not going to get the 5G specs, definitely. So satellite and other aspects of connectivity are being explored, but it's a different connectivity that and speed and latency and bandwidth we're talking about.
Okay, so basically the fiber penetration in the rural area is less. So you mean to say that in order to enable 5G, we might be using instead of optical, this, whatever the wireless technology that we will be using that one. Is
Only
that
temporarily. Eventually, everything needs
temporarily till the fiber comes? Okay,
Yeah.
Anindya, anything else? Anything which you want to add it?
No, I think I agree with Kumar sir. It will be optical primarily, and I think as it becomes cheaper and more proliferated, that's going to dominate.
I
Okay.
think the challenge is how the government can support, dig one policy, right of way costs to be brought down, etc. I mean, I couldn't speak about that earlier, but those are the challenges. Optical fiber connectivity is definitely required, and in India, it's the lowest. It's one of the lowest.
Okay, so the next question is, what is preventing government from spectrum auction for all the telcos to jump into 5G? Amrita, I will ask this one for you.
Yeah, so if there are various aspects to it, I mean, they needed to do the allocation of the spectrum. That was one. Second is with lots of other things going on AGR, additional spectrum allocation for 4G. The telcos do not have money at all. You can see even in the news there are diverse views. Jio is saying something, and Airtel and Vodafone are definitely saying they're not ready. So at the moment, the government has to find the right timing and the right consensus for them to start doing the 5G spectrum bidding auctioning.
Okay, so now let me go to the next question. Anindya, you have to take this one. Can we ever have such low cost 5G devices terminals to really have a 5G IoT as opposed to NB IoT?
Well, 5G IoT primarily is an offshoot of NB IoT. But coming to the question of low-cost devices, I think that is mainly dependent on the ecosystem. It is not so much of a technology play. Technology-wise, they're not very different. I mean, I've kind of seen both the specifications. So I think the proliferation and uptake will depend on essentially, how badly the ecosystem needs it.
Okay, but you just said it. Our product, startup product or small or medium-sized products have to be differentiated in order to win in the 5G ecosystem. So will cost differentiation play a major role, or it's only feature differentiation will play a major role? Because he is asking about cost differentiation, Ratnakar Rao B.
Yeah, see, typically it will be a combination of both. I mean, if an IoT service has to be provided, then it will not just be the cost, it will also be a differentiated service. People will not trade off cost if you provide poor service. So I think it is a combination always.
Okay. So let me go to the next question to Amrita. Any idea on what's the next 5G killer app?
That's a challenging question because, as I said before, many startups will come up with many examples and use cases. But from my perspective, I think from a consumer aspect, it's the AR, VR, and immersive gaming. Those could be something that premium customers would be willing to pay on that side. On the B2B side, which is the enterprise, things on logistics, supply chain, those are some aspects where I think that there are opportunities to monetize.
Okay. So the next question is from Siddharth Balla. What would be the effect of a start link on 5G growth in India? Would it affect for worse or for the best? Kumar?
Effect of what?
Start link on 5G growth in India.
What is Startlink?
I think it's all my perspective about it is about the public health and the safety related one. So,
Okay.
so from
So
that perspective, as you have something else to add on it.
I think it probably was meant to be Starlink, that Elon
is
Musk.
it the satellite thing?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I see satellites I will just assume it's about satellites. So satellites will complement, so especially for rural connectivity, you can very quickly get coverage. And I think the satellite-based 5G will come up in the future releases, and that will help to get coverage, though not capacity, immediately in all rural areas. So that will become integrated.
Okay.
Satellite will become another base station.
Okay. So Kumar, again, the next question to you from Shirish P. Starting from GPS to 5G, we still don't get the promised speeds in the reality, which is what is stopping, lagging, and when can we get the actual speed? Actual speed.
Okay.
So
See,
you're
I would say that 4G has done a decent job. A lot of us are able to do good work with 4G connection. So I won't say that wireless has not lived up to the promise. I think 5G will be indeed much better. It will be as good as today's broadband fiber connection at your home, especially if there's a small 5G cell, across the street on the lamppost. But beyond that, you cannot really expect because there are physics limitations on the RF spectrum. So I think they're doing a good job.
No, but all the survey reports says that for India, the speed is, quite less. Instead of whatever we promised and what we get is quite less in compared to the other ones. So do you think that in the 5G one, we will be proportionately less compared to other countries, or we will get a better speed with better fiber connectivity and better last mile?
Will definitely be less for two reasons. One, we have less spectrum than most other countries. They throw in a lot more
Okay.
spectrum. And second, we divided by many more users. We have,
Okay.
2,000 users per base station.
So thank you.
Yeah.
We will not be able to take any more questions. So thanks, panelists, for all your insights, and the viewers
Thank you.
must have got a lot of takeaways from this panel discussion. Thanks, everyone, once again.